A spaceship crash lands on a desolate planet with 3 suns, but the more pressing problem is that one of the survivors is a murderer named Riddick. This is Pitch Black, a sci-fi monster movie that gained an instant cult following when it released in 2000. I think it's time for another look. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about a movie. It's that simple, and today we're going to talk about Pitch Black from the year 2000, which is also just happens to be the start of a franchise, the Riddick franchise, I guess we'll call it. But this is one that was, fairly popular at the time, did a lot of success on the cable movie channels and stuff like that. After its release. But we will start spoiler-free in case you haven't seen it. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you are enjoying the show, please do hit the like button on YouTube. Helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support everything and help the show keep coming over at Patreon. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yeah, I guess the first question, David, is had you seen this before?
No, I hadn't. And, even my preconceptions about this series were also wrong. I was always under the impression that Riddick was blind, and that's just not the case. So, I guess I knew less than nothing about this, considering I had false information to begin with.
That's interesting. Because what's so funny, and this is something, when we get to the second one down the line, which I don't think I've scheduled the sequels in yet, but it's definitely something we'll come back to before too long has passed. Is the second one's kind of like the odd one out, because the second one does try to be a very different type of movie.
Okay.
The second one basically is more of a space opera, and as I say that, you're going to be like, that's weird, because this movie's not really a space opera.
Yeah.
So that's a bit strange. And then the third one, Riddick, kind of grounds it again a bit more into something closer to what you imagine a Pitch Black sequel would actually be. But... Yeah, the premise of Pitch Black is that a ship traveling through space sometime in the future crashes onto a planet that has 3 suns, so it's constantly bright, either very bright blue or very bright red, depending on which sun is up, and there's creatures on the planet that are dangerous. I don't know how much else to say. I don't know if I want to spoil anything more than that. I'll just sort of leave it there. But there is kind of like a solid set of rules as to, the creatures and their strengths and weaknesses and that kind of thing. Right. And the other big part of the premise, of course, is that Vin Diesel plays Riddick, who is a convict who we are told has been a brutal murderer and he's not to be trusted. But he also has some talents that may end up proving useful in the dire situation they're in on this barren wasteland of a planet. So that's the premise, and we'll get into it. This is definitely one I caught. Not in theaters, it's definitely one I saw on TV, probably as soon as it hit the movie channels and stuff like that back in the day.
Okay.
But it had been a long time. I saw a bunch back then, but it's probably been a good 15 years since I last watched it before today, so...
okay.
Was curious
did you remember it? Was there, a lot of memories there, or...?
Yeah, I definitely remembered all the main beats. But I think going into it, I was actually a little bit curious, is this going to hold up? I was like, is this going to be so 2000? Is a lot of it going to feel dated and kind of weird and so on? We're not too far removed from doing a Universal Soldier: The Return, which was from 1999, and just not that was ever a good movie, but that one it was painfully 1999. So that was the main question I had going into this viewing: is this going to hold up? And I will answer if it did or not in a second. After I asked David what you thought of Pitch Black.
So, the setting, the universe, the characters, I would say the story being told, even to the extent special effects, I think, all of these things are great. I think it's something that really, does a good job of drawing the viewer in, does a good job of really keeping my attention and doing a solid job with that. The character of Riddick himself, I think, very well done. I can see why it's someone that, kind of sticks in the public consciousness, something that Vin Diesel keeps coming back to rather than just being a one-time off thing. Not like Vin Diesel's busy, though. My main thing, and it is a major thing, is the cinematography and the editing of this movie are, in my opinion, painfully 2000s. They feel so like they're, I would say it gets better as the movie progresses, or I'm just getting more used to it. But in the first act of this movie, it reminded me of the entirety of Resident Evil, like the first one, in just its strange shot composition, its rapid paced editing, and it's not in a good way. It's very much in a, oh no, this is trying to be too edgy. This is trying to be too, we're in the new millennium now. But no, I think as the movie progressed, it's something that either it grew on me or I got more accustomed to, where there were moments in the end where I probably would have said it was too edgy, but it still was to an extent working for me. Collectively, I hesitate to say it's a good movie. I think I can understand this being a cult movie. I could see this like not being the most, I'm not saying it's bad, but not the most well-regarded like publicly, but still having dedicated fans. But I'm hesitant to say that it's actually in the qualifier of good.
Interesting. I definitely see what you're saying about the shooting style. Although I actually don't think it's as aggressive as you do. And I don't know if that's just because it's been not that long since I've watched some of those Resident Evil movies for Screams After Midnight, so they're very fresh in my head. This is nowhere near as bad, and the worst examples are a couple of key moments more than anything. I liked this back in the day, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised that it held up fairly well in my estimation. Now, that's not to say that I don't think there's some cheesiness to it, so there's some kind of like cheesy, Riddick's going to say like a badass line or a cold line or something like that. There's definitely stuff like that. There's definitely some cheesy stuff, which is why I think it falls definitely into B-movie kind of category, but I think it's a very good B-movie. I think I think the gimmick of the planet and the multiple suns, the gimmick with the creatures, the gimmick with Riddick and how his eyesight works and like all that stuff, I think it all comes together quite well. I think most of the cast are some of them are just kind of just fine, like guest players or whatever, but like I do think Vin Diesel was well cast in this role. He's not the best actor in the world. I think this kind of fits his vibe and who he is. Keith David's in there. He's always a solid person to have as a backup. Yeah. So I was finding myself thinking it was actually very well paced and well structured. Kind of the big turning point in the movie is like almost exactly halfway through, where things get very serious. So there's some nice well paced setup. There's some good payoff, and then some nice thrills. The CG's definitely, obviously, like it's 26 years ago, and I think you can definitely see it on the creatures and stuff like that. But to its credit, because it's all about keeping them in darkness for the most part, it kind of shields a lot of that dated feel to it.
Yeah, when I said the graphics and stuff like that, it's with the intention of it's 26 years old. Like I'm thinking about it for the time, and also the fact that they aren't blatant with it. Like, everything is mostly hidden in darkness. It felt like they were working within what they were able to do. And I think that's also part of the reason why the first act was kind of not working for me as well, is that's before everything goes into darkness for a lot of the movie and doesn't look great.
Yeah, I guess maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia here, but I think there's a kind of a charm to like the weird blue and red lighting when they're on the planet. I kind of like, I'm into it, but I don't necessarily think it's objectively good. I'm just kind of like, it's kind of works for me. I think this is exactly the sort of movie though that I wish there was more of. Not in premise necessarily, but just in the sense of like, I would like there to be more, if we're going to compare it to video games right now and you've got your big tentpole like AAA productions, this is like a little single or double A. It's not an indie movie, right? It's a medium budget movie backed by a studio, in this case Universal, and it's got a solid B-movie premise that takes itself seriously enough to actually be engaging and doesn't feel just like a crock of shit.
I think back in the day that was determined to be the movies that would make back the DVD sales.
Yeah.
Like they weren't expecting the huge theater box office breaker, but boy howdy did they know they'd be able to get those DVDs out.
Yeah, and it feels like they cared about what they were making as well. It feels like, when I say it gets cheesy at times, it does, but it's very earnestly cheesy. It's not like You know, like, I mean, obviously you described some of the camera work or the editing has been a little edgy, and it is, but I don't think it's edgy in a like oh, we're
Zack
so
Snyder.
cool, yeah, we're so cool, we're trying hard kind of way. It's more just like, oh, this is the style of 2000 and we're in 2000 and we're going to, you know, do this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know the production schedule on this, but I could feel a lot of like the Matrix sort of stuff in here. Like that's the kind of thing that they had, and they're like, this is where the industry's at right now. And it's not done in a mocking way. It's not done in a just trying to cash in on that. It's genuinely where the execs were thinking, or even the people who were stylistically behind the camera, this is going to be a big thing, and we can do it as well. Like, we have the capability and the desire to do it as well.
Yeah, and I'm assuming they shot it in Australia. I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing that because multiple of the lesser characters are Australian, and I think that's just a case of local casting. You know, Claudia Black's in here. She was from Farscape, which I've never seen, but I know she's like one of the regulars on that show.
Yeah. I did pull up IMDb filming locations, save for some soundstage stuff in LA. Yeah, it seems to all be Australia.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, that's neat. That's you know, it works. And Radha Mitchell, the lead, who plays Fry, I think she might even be Australian.
Yeah.
She's not got an accent in this, but I think she might be Australian.
I mean, I don't like to, you know, generalize off of first names, but like Radha just is absolutely one of those ones where she's playing an American accent, but I don't think I've ever met an American named Radha.
I don't think I've ever met anyone from anywhere named Radha, to be fair.
Well, they're all in Australia, cordoned off on a little island. Yeah, it actually does say Australian accent or actress.
Yeah. Oh, she's in Rogue, which was an Australian crocodile movie that I've seen. So yeah, she's definitely done some other Australian work. So yeah, this is mainly what I think of when I think of her. She's been in other she's in Man and Fire, and she's been in a few other things here or there. But this is definitely what I think of when I think of her. So yeah, and it would probably be what I think of when I think of Vin Diesel if it wasn't for the other thing that got successful that he happened to be in right after this.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
No, I'm talking about cars going perhaps furious, maybe fast.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was trying to, as you were talking about the space opera stuff, I was looking at the naming scheme on the rest of the Riddick, and I was like,
it's a mess.
Is the fourth one going to be the Chronicles of Riddick Tokyo Drift? Like, what are we doing with this?
Well, it's funny you say, because I was looking up the director, David Twohy, and I was like, oh, what else has he been doing? And the funny thing is that, yeah, his career's not been that hot, like, other than these movies, because he did a movie called Below, which I've not seen after this.
Yep.
Then he did Chronicles of Riddick, the second of these, and then a movie called Perfect Getaway, and then he did nothing after that until Riddick, the third Riddick movie, and he's done nothing since then, but currently filming is the fourth Riddick movie, which is called Furia, it looks like.
Sure.
Which I believe is the name of the planet that Riddick's from. I think that's what that is, if I remember correctly.
Fair enough. If you go over to his writing credits, he also does like a lot of the incidental Riddick stuff. Like he does like video games and shorts and animated projects.
Yeah, well, I think he wrote on a couple of things, like before he became a director. Yeah, he wrote on Waterworld, he wrote on The Fugitive, and Critters 2. Okay, that's surprising.
I mean, this was back in the era where you could theoretically have someone do just like one solid movie or whatever, and then get a director's chair if he shook all the right hands or whatever. But yeah, this guy seems like he went through the effort of, okay, I did Fugitive, I did Waterworld, let's not talk about that one. But like, he did what he had to do to get his stripes, and then they gave him the director's chair of like, all right, you want to do something big, here's something big.
Yeah. And I think he does an okay job. It's not like, the direction isn't like, I think, like, it doesn't get in the way. It's not, the direction is not what makes this completely click. There's a couple of nice moments in the direction, but it's more about just the fact that this is a sci-fi horror movie that has really well-established rules that are easy to understand, so you understand the tension through all the stuff that's going on, particularly in the back half once we get to the more dangerous elements of the story.
I'm going to throw out something you're probably going to immediately shoot down, but I think that this is how Zack Snyder wants his Rebel Moon stuff to be seen. Like, it has a really good universe. It has a really good like character base that's following all that. For me, the direction, yeah, it's not fantastic. For some points, it does feel like it does get in the way for me, but the universe itself feels fun, and I am looking forward to seeing the rest of the Riddick movies to get that more explored. But you know, Zack Snyder doesn't actually have that, so we're left with whatever Rebel Moon was.
I mean, maybe in terms of like how people feel about it, I think what he's going for with Rebel Moon though is definitely. I mean, it's literally his Star Wars, right? That was
Right.
what it was supposed to be. I think. Yeah, this is kind of the example of what I don't even know if they thought about doing or expanding it. Like when they were making this first movie, I think it was just make this cool, focused little movie that's fun, and then people just like the character in the movie so much that it's like, hey, we want to do more of this.
Right. I will say trivia without spoiling anything. The ending of this movie did change during production because people were just like, maybe, maybe.
Okay, I feel like someone survives that might have originally was supposed to die, but they realized they might get more movies, so they didn't.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's Keith David's character.
that's the sneaking suspicion I have based on that. So yeah, maybe. I mean, the monster design is like, I don't think it's great, and I never really did. I will say that because it's more about just kind of the swarm of monsters rather than like the individual monster. But in a world where I feel like I'm sick of seeing the exact same design constantly, I at least appreciate that this feels not that. I feel like every monster the last like 15 years has had a very similar kind of insect, long legs design. So this at least has a bit of a cool, different look to it. Yeah,
no, I for me, the one I always go back to of just genericness is the first Avengers movie, the Chitauri, like the alien army or whatever. Because like if you told me draw a Chitauri, like describe a Chitauri, I don't know what the hell a Chitauri looks like. They're the most generic alien I've ever imagined.
Sounds like a sausage, just Chitauri sausage.
I mean, it's a very fancy sausage. If it was a sausage, I'd probably be like, no, that's a great sausage. But for an alien race, no, it sucks.
So it's like, I mean, I think it's pronounced Chitauri, but the way you're saying it sounds like I'm just imagining slicing up a Chitauri for my pizza. Like, get some slices of that on there.
Yeah, probably.
And I think, there's some simple character arcs, and this is like this weird, like, this is almost going to sound like faint praise, but I don't want it to sound like faint praise, because so many movies don't get this right and don't have this. But there is a character arc for Fry, the main character. There's a character arc for Riddick, and they're not like, it's not like we're watching some, like, big Oscar contender drama that's got like deep, intricate, character themes and ideas. It's not that, but they're very, very solid and functional. So when it, the turns come and they make decisions based on their arcs, it makes sense and it feels satisfying. And so many modern movies and so many bad like sci-fi and sci-fi horror movies that try, I mean, because I'm trying to think of like something like remember you did Pandorum for homework at some point, didn't you?
Yeah, no, ask me a question about that movie and I'll present you with a maybe.
Yeah, well, but the point I'm getting at is though is that's like, on paper it says, a cool sci-fi horror set in a space prison, like that sounds like it should have the same kind of feeling vibe as this movie does, but it's so devoid of like simple basic plot structure and caring about characters and rules that make sense so you understand what the goals are. This gets all those things right, and it's not high art. It's not Stanley Kubrick by any means, right? Although 2001: A Riddick Odyssey does sound like an interesting concept.
The less I know about Chronicles of Riddick, the more I'm going to fill it in with that. Like, I'm expecting a Star Child. I'm expecting all of that.
I know, I don't know about that, but yeah. So I like it. I think it's a really, really solid, fun B movie. Yeah, there's some wrinkles around the edges. There's little moments that are a bit cheesy or things to critique, like the choice to have black text with just a little bit of an orange glow, like when space is the background, was a hell of a choice. It just feels like you're trying to be weird, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I think this movie does grow on you more as you watch it. And I'm not even talking like rewatching. I'm talking about just in the first viewing, because for me, that first act was such a turnoff. It was such a like, it felt like we were just going down the same edgy path that I'd seen so many times of like early 2000s, and we're just trying to do something like badass with the special effects now that they're there. But once we start really delving in and getting the character development, I see why this one still gets talked about. I see why it still is in the zeitgeist a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I never felt that on this viewing, and I wonder if it's because I expected and knew it was going to be better later. So it's not like whereas you're like remembering probably a bunch of bad movies you've seen from you know, this era, and you're like, oh, it's just one of these. But arguably this came before a lot of those, and you know, is up to a little bit higher in quality, right?
Oh yeah. So that's the thing. It's before we just started being like, oh, we figured out what the formula is, so now we could just provide slop. Like, here you go. This is all you need.
So no, I'm pleasantly surprised that this still holds up. It's never going to be one of the greats, but I think, you know, I think cult classics. It feels weird to say that because I still, you know, weirdly 2000 still feels like a recent year for movies to me. But you know, it is 26 years. I actually had that thought. That's just 26 years ago. And I remembered that in 2003, I got the 25th anniversary edition of Halloween, and just how old that felt in 2003 for being 25 years old. And I'm like, oh, this is actually older than that was then. And that's weird because it doesn't feel old to me at all. So,
oh, yeah. No, I literally had this exact same conversation with my wife the other day of like, I could theoretically talk to another human being, like have an actual speaking person who says the words, I was born in the 2020s. And I'm like, that's not right. We shouldn't be at that point. There's no way we're there.
Yeah, at least it wouldn't be that great a conversation, at least, though. The concerning part is that there's people who were born after 9/11 that you can now marry. That's the real concerning part.
Yep. Especially considering I'm already married. That's really weird.
Okay, a divorce would have to come first, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah, anyway. So yeah, time's fickle. But I feel that always comes up when I'm talking about something that I watched when it came out around this age, because I was, you know, when I'm in that sort of prime, and in this case I was 11 when this came out, when I'm in that sort of 8 to 14 range, there tends to be this weird feeling of nostalgia, but time feels like it's both moved quick, but also it feels like ages ago when you actually think about it.
We somewhat recently did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm in that exact same boat. That's that movie where I'm just like, oh yeah, that movie must have come out, well, if it's 2026, it must have come out in like 2014, right? No. No, that's a whole decade off.
Yep. No, it's just one of those weird things, but yeah. And then I got a little sad when I was thinking about that. I was like, oh yeah, because this was, at least in 2000, they still put out like movies of this size of like new things, like of original IP, of like, you know, they greenlit this based on just like, hey, we've got this pitch and a script and this person wants to make it, and he's written some movies for us, we trust him, let's go do it. Yeah, it's
I'm in the same boat with you, because it's, as I think about it, any time that there's a movie like that made nowadays, it's such a big deal. Like the last one that I can think back to, it's not an exact carbon copy, but like John Wick. John Wick was one of those ones that like wasn't a prior IP. It was kind of in the middle ground when it came to budgets and stuff like that. But when it came out, it was a big deal. Everyone kept on pushing it even before it came out, because they're like, oh my God, this thing was made by like a bunch of people who were just passionate about it. I'm like, wow, who would have thought?
Yeah, and you know, the truth is that they needed someone like Keanu Reeves to put his name behind it and say, no, I'm going to star in this because I believe in it. And that's probably what got them the funding to make the movie, because they had someone who had clout to back it up. Whereas I don't think there's anyone in this with like serious clout at the time, right? I mean, this is before Vin Diesel was a star. You know, it was just on the merits of, you could do this, a movie of this size, if you were up and coming at this sort of level.
Yeah. The only thing I could think, and I have nothing to back this up, but the only thing I could think is that this was like a script that I don't know how to pronounce his last name, David Twohy, yeah, whatever it is. He may have had this like floating around for a little bit, was trying to get it pitched around, but like this was his one where he's like, if anyone's going to do it, I'm going to direct it. Like, I'm not going to let anyone lay hands on my baby.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. He's not the only writer in this, I don't think, is he?
True. No, there's like 3 or 4. Yeah,
I think the other 2, maybe even, because it was definitely like a story by, then a screenplay by. I think the other 2 were story by, and then all 3 did the screenplay, I think. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, but obviously he's been attached to the character, much like Vin Diesel. I mean, Vin Diesel literally said he'd go back to Fast, because remember he wasn't in a couple of the Fast and the Furious, and he's basically said, hey, let me do another Riddick, and I'll do more Fast and the Furious. He literally leveraged the big thing they wanted him to go back to, so he could do another Riddick. Yeah. So yeah,
that's the other way to get made, I guess, is you just gotta like argue with the studio, being like, I'll show up in your giant tent pole if you let me do this.
Yeah, one for you, one for me. That's the old adage.
There you go.
I like the music actually in this. It's got a main theme that's recognizable that pops up throughout. I appreciated that. You don't get that all the time anymore in these types of movies.
Yeah. It was similar to the visuals for me, where at the beginning it felt a little bit try-hard, but as time passed on and I kind of got accustomed to the main theme and how it was played in more like emotional moments as well, I was like, okay, this is better. I'm doing more all right with this.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like to me like you need to be convinced by the movie as it went on. And I wonder if on a second viewing, if you ever go back to it in a couple of years, you'll just be into it from the start because you know where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see that happening, because when it came to the beginning, I was, this is, as much as it narrows down the cast later on, this begins feeling very much like an ensemble movie. It has a bunch of people packed in at the beginning, and I was just like, I don't care. You're not doing anything to make me care. Like, it doesn't feel like there's anything there. Well, now that I'm attached to the characters, I feel like I'm really going to latch on to certain things in the beginning.
Funny you bring that up, because I think it's actually very obvious when you've seen the movie already. You notice that which ones are going to stick around for most of the movie, because they definitely get more little moments in time, even in that early period.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then there's the ones that are like, oh, you're the red shirts. You're here to show that there's danger. That's why you're here.
Yep.
Yeah, so no, I like that. What did you think? Okay, I don't want to spoil too much here, but I'll say that we do get POV shots from the creatures that are on the planet, and it was a very interesting kind of like effect they try and show with it. How did you feel about that?
I was okay with it. I think we do a couple POVs that are in weirdness. One is Riddick and the other is the creatures. I like the way that, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think they actually do a POV from the creatures until they reveal like what the difference, like what the visual effect is supposed to be representing. And because of that, I think it works really well. I like the fact of they set up like, here's what you're going to be seeing, and then the way they show it, it worked for me. It managed to like get across what I was saying. That being said, it's almost kind of like Predator vision, where like it's almost messed up enough that like you don't really need to be able to tell what's happening. It's more vibes based of, there's movement, therefore you know what's going to happen now. Yeah,
I think it looks a bit cheesy just because of the quality of because it's all CG obviously, but I think there's a kind of a charm to it, weirdly. There's, because I feel like a lot of bad CG doesn't have charm. I think stuff in this, because that still feels very earnest to me, of like just trying to use it when it's needed as opposed to just like, you know, shoving CG everywhere. So very good. Anything else you want to bring up before we dive into the spoilers? I
don't think so. I mean, I'm just specifically to reiterate that while I don't think that this one, like, it's really straddling that line of good movie and kind of just cheesy, but I think it's intentional. I am sold enough on the franchise and I'm looking forward to the later installments. Like, it's done well enough that I want to see more of this universe, so that's got to count for something.
I think it's an interesting franchise. I like that it exists, and it's definitely uneven. You know, I think I mean, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the second one now, and certainly I don't know how that conversation, what it's going to be like. But I'm curious, because it's so different, because it's like, hey, we're going to a planet where there's like, you know, a town, and we're going to speak to people, and there's going to be like an army at one point. Like, you know, there's all these different things, and it's like, yeah, none of this feels like a Pitch Black movie. It feels very, very different. And then it never kind of stuck, but there definitely was like a DVD that came out of this movie after the second one, that the title on the front said The Chronicles of Riddick, Pitch Black. So they tried to make that a thing for a little bit. It never stuck, luckily, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that the... I guess it's the reverse. The Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, instead of just Star Wars.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to that, actually. That's a good comparison. Anyway, yeah, so spoilers for Pitch Black. You've been warned. We are full into the spoilers, which is good. I really didn't want to bring up Jack before we get into spoilers, because I feel like it'd be weird to say he when we know it's a she, but that's a reveal. And I honestly don't know when I first watched this if that was something that was very obvious. On this viewing, the entire time I'm like, it's clearly a girl. Like what you're all blind.
I didn't catch it. I didn't flag it down.
No, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that someone watched it for the first time. It isn't that obvious.
It does a good job of. I mean, here's the thing. It's one of those things where once the reveal is made, I feel like either I'm just like immediately my brain switches over, or the actress specifically like lightens up her voice. Because I feel like every time she spoke after that, I was like, all right, well, that's definitely a female voice. And that was not how it was before, because I feel like I would have caught that.
There's definitely moments, because that's what I was noticing, is there's just moments where the inflection just goes a little way where I'm like, that's definitely a girl's voice. But I feel like if you weren't, maybe it's just because I know, so I'm really noticing it. But like, yeah, it's definitely there, and it's obviously just this little, this reveal. So, yeah, so just let's explain the rules of the movie then, right? So there's this planet that they land on, which is. And I guess you could kind of try and figure out based on the, what do you call it? With the globes spinning around on the thing.
It's called an orrery.
Thank you, orrery. That's the word I was looking for. Maybe you could try and look at that and try and figure it out. But there's two suns on one side, there's one sun on the other side, and it seems like the planet's kind of caught in a gravitational orbit between the two of them, or the three of them, I guess. And it's like, okay, so no darkness, all right. And I like some of the things that come up in the movie, like, well, this little buggy that was at this base that they find is solar powered because the sun's always out. So why wouldn't everything just be solar powered? It would be ridiculous not to. Because even later on, when it's like, oh, it doesn't work because it's dark, I was thinking, well, that's silly. Solar power stuff always has a battery to collect. But I'm like, well, if you're on a planet where it's never not sunny, then maybe you wouldn't bother doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you would need like maybe 5 minutes, and then you're like, oh, nope, here it is again.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so that's a cool, it's a cool visual as well. When you see the sunset and, when an eclipse eventually happens, you get like, the rings of that one planet that's doing the eclipse, like sort of in the horizon. It looks really cool. So that's the big thing, is there's going to be an eclipse where there's going to be darkness. And that's a problem because the creatures that they encounter that are underground and hiding, their only weakness is light. And they don't come out during light, but obviously once there's an eclipse happening, oh shit, it's feeding frenzy time. So it becomes this survival problem-solving movie of we have to get from A to B to get on this ship to leave, but we have to do it in darkness, and whatever we've got that can make light is all we've got to protect ourselves. So I like the rules. They're very simple. You've got some people with like blowtorches or little Molotov, cocktails that they're holding or whatever you want to call them.
I agree, and I liked the aspect of the lights and all that. There is one extra rule that they throw in, and it's barely even a rule. It's more of just the wrench in the plans. And that is, for whatever reason, they're attracted to blood. Like, that's the bit that, like, out of everything else in the creatures, that part didn't feel fully explained. It was just here's why they're always constantly chasing us. That
felt undercooked to me, because I don't even think you needed that, because, like, if they're attracted to sound, like, you walking is enough to, especially since there's nothing else on this planet. They've already killed everything else, so you're the only things here making sound. So it's not really needed, and it kind of felt like it played into the reveal of Jack, because, basically the reveal is the implication is that she's on her period and that's attracting them, and it's like, okay, so, but no, to be fair, it's probably the one plot element where I'm like, wait, was there maybe like an extra couple of scenes that were cut or something that justified this more, like why it needed to be there? Because it felt, but they also couldn't cut it out completely because they had to do the reveal, like, because they couldn't not do that, so it's just one of those toss-up things where it's like, all right, well, and I think they also at some point somewhere in the middle do a thing where I'm blanking on her name, Fry, Radha's character, she also gets injured to some extent. It's just like, oh, you better patch up that wound or else they're gonna track us down or whatever. So yeah, it feels like there should have been something that like more so set it up. I think that I could see it happening during that initial sequence where Radha goes down into the cave and like maybe like, she cuts her hand or something and that triggers them, but nothing really feels like it was setting it up. Yeah, honestly, I forget that it's even a rule, to be honest, that comes up, because it does have so little impact. And then the other thing, of course, is that Riddick, you thought he was blind going into the movie. No, so he had like a surgical job done in his eyes so he could see in the dark. And that ends up being this big advantage. It's one of the big moments of the movies, like when we're setting up, not quite for Act 3, because it's still kind of halfway, but it's when, like, you know, darkness has fallen and they're like making the plan to go, you know, transport the power cells to the ship to escape. And she's acting like a captain, and like I think it's Keith David is like, wait, do you really think you can get us there in the dark? And she's like, no, but he can. And, you know, Vin Diesel turns around all dramatic, and it's like, oh, suddenly the serial killer's got the most useful ability of anyone here. And I you know, I like that because it's forcing them to work together and so on. So I like that element of it as well. So I like all the rules. I think the rules are fun and simple and easy to follow. And, you know, it's so easy to build tension of, like, you know, the light flickering out, or, you know, the flame runs out of fuel, or at one point it starts raining and they're all like, shit, most of our light's based on fire. This is bad.
I will say, you said the rules make it very simple. And I also appreciate the way the characterization works in this movie, where it's very, I wouldn't even say simple tropes, but it's very easy to understand characters, where it's like you have a character who is thrust into the leadership position, but she doesn't want it, and like she's trying to get over her own decisions that she made. You get the Riddick's character, who is clearly, you know, not a good guy. He's very much self-serving, whatever, but then you see him being forced to play with others and work that out. It's rife, like you said, for developing these arcs. It's very easy to get these characters more well developed and explore these things as they interact with each other.
Yeah, one thing I was noticing on this viewing, and, you know, if we're going back to the start to kind of work through it, and semblance of order here, is that I think I noticed on this viewing that everything we hear about what Riddick's done, for the most part, comes from a very unreliable person. So, well, don't get me wrong, I don't doubt that he's killed people. I'm sure that is true. I think the way that Cole Hauser's character, who's like this sort of, he looks like a cop at first, but he's more of like a bounty hunter who just wants the bounty. He's been chasing Riddick, and he's the one who's got him locked up and transporting him here with all these civilians, because they're all in cryosleep at the start of the movie. And we get like narration from Riddick because he's like describing what he thinks he's heard, because he's all blindfolded and stuff. But he's like, oh, I think I heard like a settler, and like, you know, I heard this and that. And actually, you know what? I like that intro. I liked him describing what he thought he heard. He's like, oh, because he's describing Claudia Black. He's like, oh, there's like an engineer sounding lady with like boots and, like, you know, a tool belt, and, like, you know, he's basically. I was like, okay, he's smart. He's perceiving what's around him. He's very tactical. I like that about him. But yeah, I think the way Cole Hauser's character describes him, it sounds like, oh, he's like a brutal murderer who sneaks into anyone's like homes and just like kills them in dastardly ways. And while he's definitely killed people, I think as the movie goes on, and there's still definitely an arc to like get to redemption or become a better person by the end, I do think I get the feeling like, okay, he's bad, but I don't think he's like the devil, the way that Cole Hauser describes him as. Yeah,
it feels more like PR. Like, it feels almost like he spread his own legend around to try to like make him sound badder than he was. And in actuality, he may have done significantly less than all of that.
Yeah, it sounds like he kills when he needs to, for sure. But I don't know if he's actually like, oh, I get off on killing people the way that I think the start of the movie kind of presents him as. You
know, just to go with how completely unreliable we get his backstory, I clicked on his Wikipedia page to be like, what are we doing? I don't want to get too spoiled, but like, see what's up. Every single line of this Wikipedia page has citation needed next to it. There's not a single reference in this whole thing, so I have no idea what's true or not.
That's funny. So yeah, I mean, yeah, because the whole thing is that John seems like he's going to be the good guy kind of co-lead of the movie, but it's actually he's kind of more of an antagonist by the time he goes down, and obviously Riddick becomes more of an anti-hero by the time we get to the end.
Yeah, both characters start in the same place of self-serving. Like, they both are just looking out for themselves, but we don't know that about John as much, and we assume it about Riddick, and it's only once the reveals start piling in that we're like, oh, wait, no, he's a dick, and Riddick is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Radha Mitchell's Fry, her whole thing is that when the captain dies in the initial, like, you know, disaster in space, there's, like, some little meteors or whatever come through the ship, you know, and I don't know if we see like a blast door shut, but I was thinking, aren't those holes still there? No one seems to be like struggling or minor details. Not a big deal, but it's something.
It's whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the one thing I thought of when they said there are 3 stars in the system is that what was it? Was it Netflix? Someone just came out with that show, The 3-Body Problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing of like, oh, it's unpredictable. Like as long as you're orbiting 3 items, like it's unpredictable to say where you're going to end up. Meanwhile, they have a thing that says every 22 years there's an eclipse. And it's like, all right, well, that doesn't seem feasible, but all right.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is unpredictable in this sense, though. I think I think that already makes it clear that there is like a set pattern to how the planet
Right, but
moves.
I'm saying if you have 3 bodies, by definition, that is not, I guess, unpredictable in the short term on a cosmic scale. I guess you can have that, but it should be more difficult to try to guess when it's going to happen.
The people who were here before did a lot of work, right?
That's fair. That's the other thing. I mean, maybe this was just me. Maybe this was my own thing. This felt to me very first Alien movie in terms of like, we get this whole thing of there's this society, there's these people around and all that, but we don't really get a lot of information. We don't get like anything about what they did or anything like that. All we know is they're all gone.
There's definitely a little Alien and Aliens influence in this. There's no denying that. I actually quite like that, though. I like this idea of just teasing the larger world, but we're just kind of like on this microcosm of just these characters in this situation. Because like there's some stuff they do that they don't even really explain. Like once they crash land, right, and the Fry's whole thing, like I was saying, is that she is willing to jettison the passengers to save the front of the ship to save herself. So that's kind of her guilt for the rest of the movie, is that she, and it's only because the other guy who dies by the time they land, like the co-captain or whoever he is, like he like opens the blast door up so that the computer's like, no, sorry, we can't jettison because it'll kill you as well. And it's like, so he stops her, and now she has to live with that guilt. And so she feels kind of guilty when the rest of them are all looking at her, oh, you're the acting captain now, because you're kind of the highest ranking officer of the ship. So, she has that with her. But one of the things they don't explain too much is that they all have these like breather things that they just sort of every so often suck on a little bit. And I'm like, oh, so that's just like a little hit of like oxygen every once in a while, because like the atmosphere is okay, but it's like not enough to keep you going, kind of thing,
Yeah, I mean, eventually it just disappears. They're doing it for the sake of having a little bit of space stuff going on, but it's not explained either. They just do it because, why would you go out on this planet without some source of oxygen?
Yeah, or maybe it was more to do with the water, because I think maybe it goes away once they get that machine working at the camp that has water coming from it.
That's possible. Could be a water spout,
Yeah, I mean, it may have been like, this is a very limited, supply of water that you're just kind of like getting a little hit of every once in a while.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I mean, the planet is, you've got a little bit of outposts and whatever like that, but it is essentially one giant desert. Like, there's nowhere that you can really shelter from it.
Yeah, there's some skeletons of some big creatures that were once here, kind of a graveyard of sorts. They sort of walk through that. Which honestly is probably if I'm picking something that's maybe the weakest part of the first act for me, it's so Riddick gets away quite early on from his restraints, and there's like, oh, we have to go find him, and that becomes like problem number 1. The serial killer dude is gallivanting, and he may come back and kill us in our sleep. We have to deal with this. And they're kind of looking through the sort of skeleton graveyard of these big creatures, and there's like a lot of like Riddick hiding behind a rib cage here or there, or hanging out on top of a skeleton. That stuff was definitely the most kind of like gimmicky, cheesy to me, where I'm like, okay.
See, I agree. I was just like, okay, but like I didn't know where the movie was going yet. So for me, I was like, is this the movie? Is this the thing where like we're just going to be like one step behind Riddick sort of thing? So I was at least in the moment with it, right up until there's a moment where some other complete rando survives the crash. He comes banging down the door. He startles a couple of people who we're familiar with. And in startling one of them, he gets shot. And the guy who has the gun is like, oh, geez, I thought that was Riddick. And then he like bends down out of camera and just sitting on an Overwatch point, which is basically just a garden lawn chair with a beer, is Riddick just watching the whole thing happen. And I'm like, all right, that's a step too far for me.
Well, I thought that was, to be fair, they set up because it was the artifact guy who was like transporting a bunch of booze. He set that little deck chair up, so they set it up. Is the reason why it's there. What got me though was so this Australian guy shoots this other survivor who stumbles up, and it's a whole tense moment where he's coming up outside, and Claudia Black and Jack are like, "Oh, is that Riddick? Oh, we have to be careful. Brace yourself." And then he comes around the corner. It's just a survivor who landed with another part of the ship. And he's like, oh, thank God, I see something. And bang, bang, bang. He goes down. And the Australian guy runs up and goes, crikey. I thought it was Riddick. And I'm like, did you just say crikey after accidentally murdering an innocent man? You can't just say crikey. That's not the time for crikey.
I mean, yes, but I was like, look, I would have made fun of that character a lot more if we didn't have the snap zoom to Riddick just like toasting in the air, like, hello, I'm here. You're all looking for me, and I'm just on a hill.
Crikey Man's not around for much longer though. He's the first to die from the creatures. He's digging a grave for all the dead bodies, and he's like, a hole. I'm going to look in here. Oops.
But see, for every moment that is cheesy like that, and also I don't know, him getting caught in the hole is fine. It's not cheesy, I would say, but it's also not like, the greatest moment ever. For every moment like that, there's the sequence where Riddick is chained up against the pole, and he realizes there's like that like little line where the pole has been separated, and he can like dislocate his shoulders and get it up there, and they do it all in one take, and it's horrifying to watch it, but like, damn, it's a good shot.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, and then it's because he sort of dislocates them, and then once he sort of brings them back round enough, they sort of click back into place again. And he brings it, and I'm not sure exactly how they did that, but it's a fun moment anyway.
Apparently Vin Diesel can just do that. And
okay. Well.
They used some visual effects because he couldn't do it while handcuffed, because like the handcuffs would like wrap up in a weird way. So he was just holding on to a rope, and they CGI'd that. But like, he can just dislocate his shoulders like that. That was all him.
That's a really weird bit of trivia. You watch that shot and you go, there's a visual effect here, but the visual effect's the handcuffs. The weird crazy part's the real.
You just imagine showing that to friends like, now what do you think here is touched up? Anything that you would think? Nah, it's this other thing.
You know what? Credit to them, because trying to sneak something like that in the year 2000 with CG is a lot tougher than doing it now, and I never noticed anything looking weird there.
You were probably stuck on his shoulders.
Probably, yeah.
Popping out of place.
I'm too distracted by Vin Diesel pulling a Lethal Weapon 2.
Exactly.
Although in Lethal Weapon 2, he had to like slam his shoulder against the wall to dislocate it. This is a bit more wacky. I guess it's not that, because some people can just dislocate their fingers and pop them back in, and they do like a little party trick. So I guess it's not surprising some people can just do it with their shoulders if they want to.
I used to, when I was a kid, be double jointed in my thumbs, but anytime I try it now, it just hurts like a bitch.
You just try it now, and your thumb just breaks. You're like, we go to the hospital. So there's a lot of this cat and mouse stuff, but they do catch Riddick at a certain point. Johns gets to him, and it's after, because basically when the Crikey Man gets killed in the little cave hole, and that, it's filmed in a cheesy way where it's just a lot of quick cuts and flashes and like stretching images, but Claudia Black runs up and sees him and looks at Riddick, and it looks like he's maybe done something, even though he's not get a drop of blood on him, but he's right there next to the crime scene, so it's like maybe he's guilty. He runs away, and Johns chases after him, and it's like, okay, you said you heard some noises. Radha Mitchell-Fry goes to speak to him, and that's kind of their first one-on-one scene, and they're doing a little bit of the Hannibal Lecter thing where she's like, I want to see what your eyes look like, and he's like, you're going to have to get closer for that, and it's like, tense, going close, and it's like, and it's okay, it works well enough for what it is.
Yeah, we get the bit when he's like stalking around the rib cages where he overhears her confessing that she tried to kill everybody, like she tried to drop everybody off the ship, and for whatever reason he doesn't kill her then, but when it comes back to this moment, he's like trying to play the psychological game, like the Hannibal Lecter sort of thing, and I think she responds with like, okay, what other deep dark truth are you gonna drop on me? Just like immediately calling him out of just like, let's stop this and just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, and then when they start to form their plans to like, okay, they've got to this camp, they found this like little ship that they can get working again to fly away, and it's like, Johns comes to Riddick and says, hey, if I let you out of those restraints, you help us, and like, put your weight in, and maybe you can go free at the end, and blah blah blah. And it's all very tense, it's all very kind of like dick measuring kind of vibes, kind of thing. But that sets up the kind of the uneasy alliance of like, okay, Riddick's now kind of working with us, and this also starts the little kind of subplot of Jack's kind of like adoration of Riddick, where Jack thinks Riddick's cool, asks some questions about getting eyes like that, and then very quickly we see that Jack shaves her head and gets some goggles like his, so she looks like Riddick, and everyone's like, this is weird. Why is she dressing like the killer?
I was gonna say, like, if you tell me, like, oh, okay, idolizes Riddick at the end of the movie, like after he's done all the heroic things and has saved their lives or whatnot, I'd be like, yeah, all right, I get that. But you're telling me idolizing Riddick at the point where, like, all we know is he's killed a bunch of people. I mean, like, Pete, if I ever show up on this show looking like Ted Bundy, please tell me not to do that. That seems like a really bad idea.
I feel like I'd have to check what Ted Bundy looks like, because I don't have an image popping into my head instantly.
How about Dahmer? Can I say Dahmer?
Sure.
Would you have that one? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It doesn't seem healthy, but it's kind of like, oh, it's a teenager. One of the things I do like about it, though, is that it does, like, I don't know what age the actress was, but it does give the vibe of someone who's immature, the way that she idolizes them, and or even, like, there's a moment where when they send in Fry, right? It's before they make the deal with Riddick, actually, but it's just, they send in Fry on as like a line, right? They're holding a cable or a rope, which she's attached to, and she goes into the cave. And she sees the creatures, and she has to have a whole escape where she climbs up like a crevice, and they have to, like, sort of punch through the dirt
to get to her. It's like termite mounds.
Yeah.
It's like whatever these creatures make.
So they pull her out of that, right? And immediately, the thing that stuck out to me the most about this scene is Jack yelling, I heard you first, Fry. I heard you first. Like, it's like she really wants credit, and I'm like, oh, that's such a childlike thing to do.
It's weird because, like, if you told me, because obviously, you know, at a certain point we find out that she's on her period or whatnot. If you told me this was like 12, 13, 14 years old, I'd say she feels a bit too old to be acting this way. But I think it's because we get that double layer of it's a girl pretending to be a boy that, like, it feels like it's already a bit more, like, immature, because, like, you know, a boy would be, like, a little bit stockier, having hit puberty around that age or whatever else. So it being a little bit more feminine looking, it feels like she is by default younger.
Yeah. And then also just in the idea in general that she's trying to idolize a killer to look strong kind of feeds into this idea of wanting to, like, oh, I think people will treat me better if they think I'm a boy, kind of thing. So it does all kind of fit together in that's simple enough way that I don't think it feels too bad. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I
think as long as we're just breezing through this beginning here, just to mention the other people that are around, we've talked about them. Keith David is some sect of Islam or something like that, where he is taking a bunch of young boys to New Mecca, which is somewhere out in space, I guess. And we have Paris, who is a rich dude who's bringing a bunch of, like, old artifacts and stuff like that.
And booze.
Earth? ?
Yeah, expensive booze. Yes. He's a bit pompous, but he's comic relief. He's fine in that role. And then Claudia Black plays Shaza, although I'm just going to keep saying Claudia Black. And obviously we mentioned Jack a bunch. So yeah, that's kind of the like, obviously all, like, the three, like, younger, like, guys or kids who are with Keith David. Might as well call them Red Shirt 1, Red Shirt 2, and Red Shirt 3. They die throughout the movie at various points, and that's just what they're there for. So
yeah, like, it's I thought maybe we could have saved one, but then once we got down to one and I realized I still didn't know that one's name, I was like, oh, never mind. He's not long for this world.
No. So yeah, I mean, this stuff sets everything up. They're working hard. One of those young characters dies because they go into, like, a sort of one of the bigger building areas. It's like a corn harvester or something. In this little camp that they found from people who have been here before. And there's some speculation as well, and Riddick's the one who's very kind of, like, cold and jaded, just comes out, because they're all, like, theorizing, oh, why did they leave all this stuff? It's like, oh, maybe they were in a rush, maybe there was weight limits, and then Riddick's like, no, they're dead. Like, they're gone, and there's, like, everything's been left behind because they died and they didn't get away. And so it's like, okay. And then the young kid dies because he goes into that big building, which is quite dark, and they kind of realize this is a problem, and Fry kind of puts together that, oh, there's going to be an eclipse every so often, and we're almost at this next one. Now,
it's not even we're almost at this next one. That implies, like, we only have a couple days to get things together. They have, like, half an hour.
Yeah.
They have no time.
I think it's completely fair to say this is such a movie thing that she has that realization, and then literally 5 minutes later it starts getting dark, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That is absolutely a movie thing, but at the same time, I kind of get it. It works as from like a movie structure point of view, where like, oh, things are ramping up. We understand the threat of this because how they're so screwed. If it gets dark, they get back to their crash ship to get the power cells because that was something they still need to put in the other ship, and they've been delaying that because Johns has been acting weird about it because he doesn't want Riddick to have the chance of like stealing it and escaping and leaving them all behind. And we also find in the intervening there that he's a little more unstable than he initially seemed. He's taking morphine every day. He's a drug addict, and he gets a little... Because there's a moment early on when he tells Fry to shut up, and he apologizes for it right after. He's like, oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. But then as the movie keeps going, it's like, nah, this is just who he is. He's abrasive, and he's obsessed, and he's self-serving, and so on.
I think somewhere in there is where Riddick also does the reveal of, like, he made you think he was a cop. He's not a cop. And then when she confronts him about that, he's like, I never said I was a cop, but, like... It's advantageous that you think that. And
Riddick also points out to her that, hey, there's a reason why he doesn't want to just kill me. I'm worth twice as much alive. Like, that's why I'm not just dead. So it's like, okay. It's like, okay, well, you're still seeming very mysterious and, like, you know, creepy and unsettling. You're making very strong, compelling points as to why you can't trust Johns either. It seems like you're speaking truth. So,
yeah. It's one thing where it's... If he were doing what Johns was doing and also speaking these same truths, I think we would still dislike him as an audience member. I think we would still treat him as villainous, but it's only because it looks like he is, well, he's very jaded and very straightforward and blunt about things. He is being helpful. He is absolutely trying to, like, make sure these people get out alive. Whereas Johns, every time we're seeing him, is very much more of, all I care about is getting Riddick back for my bounty.
Yeah, Riddick's very perspective. There's lots of little moments where he'll, like, kind of... You know, like, when they're racing back to the ship, when they realise the eclipse is about to happen, like, there's a moment where Jack's kind of looking at Riddick, being all like, oh, my hero. And Riddick just kind of points with his finger, and he's very calm about it, and then Jack looks to the side, and it's because they're driving under the ribcage of one of these skeletons, and it's like, oh, duck, because you're about to get hit in the head. And it's just, it's very kind of, you know, it's very cool. There's a reason why he kind of caught on as a cult favorite character.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite lines, it doesn't happen until after the eclipse, but one of my favorite lines in this is he's taking point because, of course, he can see better in the dark. And he was like, all right, how are we? And he's like, looks good. And they take like 3 steps, and then they get smacked in the face by an alien. And they're like, I thought you said it was good. He's like, no, I said it looks good. And then there's a pause, and he's like, well, how does it look now? Looks good.
That's a funny moment. I actually did quite like that moment. So they get back to the ship. Claudia Black dies here when the initial swarm comes out. She tries to run.
Brutal too, very brutal.
Yeah, she gets just sort of ripped in half by the swarm.
Yep.
And then Riddick just casually, because he was also lying down, but because this swarm's gotten her, he's like, oh well, I've got a window here. I'm just going to stand up and off I go to the ship. And you know, we get into we're in the ship now. It's pitch black outside, and we are having to figure out a plan. And I like this stuff. It's like, okay, how many lights do we have? Do we have any torches? Is like, we've got a blowtorch, we've got some booze.
During the sequence when they're trapped inside, they end up shooting one and killing it, and that's where they realize, oh, it's weak to light. Like, if we shine a flashlight at it, its skin starts blistering. So that's what we got to do.
Which is important because, like, okay, it was clear that they didn't like daylight, but that doesn't necessarily mean, like, you know, artificial. I don't know if you call it fake. It's not fake light, but you know what I mean, like
artificial. Yeah.
You know, like, well, light from flashlights and things like that also affect it. And turns out it does. So it's like, okay, what can we do with that? And then we get to the planning stage. And, you know, and Johns doesn't want to do it. Johns is like, no, this is like, you're just going to get us all killed. You're a loser who wanted to, like, jettison us all like before, blah, blah. And to be fair, like, I do think that he's got a point, and part of it is like, well, surely the smartest thing to do is just to wait out the eclipse. Like, how long is the eclipse going to last? But then it's like, well, they tried to wait it out as well, and they eventually all died. We don't know. I mean, that's for all we know, this eclipse lasts a year. We have no idea how long this lasts, so we kind of have to go. So
yeah, I mean, I like that perspective where it's like, okay, let's. It's the thing where if they didn't cover it, it would be something we'd be talking about. It'd be something where we sat down and said, like, well, why didn't they just try to wait? What's wrong with them there? The fact that they took it and said, here's the reason why we don't do the obvious thing. And they don't even provide, like, a legitimate reason. They don't provide a thing of, like, I was reading these books and it says X, Y, and Z. It's just the fear that it wouldn't work is enough for it. As long as we show that we thought about it and come to any sort of reason why we're not doing it, it's an excuse enough to make it work.
Yeah, and it's the idea as well that once they run out of their light sources, which will run out, like, these creatures may just break in and that's them done for. So, and, you know, it's still pitch black by the time they're leaving the planet, so it doesn't feel like the movie makes them look stupid for going through with it. So,
yeah,
you know, it's all fine.
I mean, I'm sure that you could probably, like, if there was anybody who's halfway decent with, like, geometry or astrology or anything like that, or like look at the planet and like see like, okay, it makes up this much degrees in the sky. It took this long for it to hide behind the planet. So we're probably looking at like X number of hours. Like, mathematically, it seems like it should be pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah, I think, I suppose you get into some weird ideas of like, well, is there such a thing in like the known universe where a planet's caught between multiple suns? Like, how does that work? Like, I don't know if that's even a thing that really exists. And I think it's fun in the movie, but like, I don't know if there is like an actual science to fall back on here outside of just wild speculation.
The only one I could think of is Tatooine. That's it.
So no, but they form the plan. It makes Riddick important because he can see in the dark. And whenever we get his POV, we get kind of, you know, this kind of smeary kind of, you know, glow to everything.
It's purple, but anything that is even like the smallest source of light, and seemingly also to an extent like body heat, because these creatures are giving it off as well. It just shows up as like a bright white blinding light.
Yeah, which was done because he was in such a dangerous prison that he got this done so he could see if anyone was trying to sneak upon in the dark. He's like, okay, so
we have Fry comes up and is just like, how do I get one of those things? He's like, you want to go to prison? You want to get a prison doctor to work on you? That's how you get it done.
So it's like, okay, so they make it across to the other part of the ship. So it's a little bit dangerous at first, and they pull out all these like light tubes that are in the ship, these glow sticks basically that they can wrap around themselves. And it's like, we're going to walk with these, we've got the Molotovs, we've got this and that, and Riddick's going to lead the way. This is the plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate the plan. I like the plan. To an extent, I was thinking, yeah, this plan can work. And then Jack has to do the one thing that tells me in this movie Jack should not have survived, which is as soon as I think it's Paris drops something just incidentally, Jack's like, hey, everyone, hold on a minute. Takes off all the glow sticks around them, goes over to get the thing, and causes Keith David to then be like, no, wait, hold on. And there's just like the whole plan falls apart after that. But I'm like, Jack, just keep the glow sticks on. That's all you had to do.
Right. That is stupid, right? Jack is definitely the young idiot for doing that. However, I'm going to give more shade to Paris, because Paris gets scared after that and runs away and pulls the power like apart that's keeping all these glow sticks alive and completely kills that part. So that's like, oh, the best light source you had is just gone because this idiot ran off in fear. But it does lead to that moment though where he like blows the alcohol onto his torch and it lights up the surroundings and you see just he's surrounded by the aliens. I'm like, okay, that's a good bit. You had a good idea there for a shot.
That's what I'm saying. For every time we have a stupid moment, we also have a counterpoint where it's like, okay, that was good. I liked it.
Yeah. Obviously, we get the reveal of Jack around here. But the big thing is that Johns comes up to Riddick and tries to make a deal with them. Johns asks Riddick to kill Jack because at this point we've established that the aliens are maybe being lured to us more than they would be because of Jack's blood. And Johns is like, hey, if you do the kid, then like, you know, maybe we'll make a deal about what happens to you when we get out of here. And this is kind of the moment where it's like, oh, Riddick's more of a hero than Johns is, because Riddick doesn't want to do that. And you know, at least the fight where ultimately, you know, Johns is going to get killed. Where I mean, Riddick doesn't kill him. Riddick fights him, and then an alien bites Johns' head off. But
yeah, I think he like cuts his chest. There's this big bleeding wound, and he's like, "Oh, you know what we said about blood."
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little fight because it takes place all under the light of this green flare that they've thrown on the ground. So there's a bit of atmosphere to it at the very least.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I know you were saying that the earlier different colors of sun scene like kind of worked for you, just like maybe nostalgia or whatever. This atmospheric lighting, like the green flare and all that, absolutely works for me. Like the monochrome color of it all, that just Really makes everything pop throughout their whole fight scene. I'm loving this.
I think the difference is, and it's a very simple difference, is that this is a real light source that's making the color, whereas those other scenes where it's daytime, that's just a filter because they can't, light up the entire desert with a color. So, it just is the way it is. So, no, fun stuff here, and that's so then Johns is gone, and we're losing people left and right seemingly, and not long after this, the rain, kicks in, and there was a little conversation earlier where Keith David was wanting to pray with Riddick because he prayed with everyone else, and Riddick's like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that," and he's like, "Oh, you don't believe in God?" And Riddick says, "No, I absolutely believe in God. I hate the son of a bitch." Like,
his justification, he's like, "I have been through so much shit in my life. I have gone through so many things. I have to believe that there's a higher power that's putting me through all of that, and I hate him." Yeah.
So that leads to...
I will say, sorry, the one thing that he was doing right when Keith David walked up is they were looking at a skeleton of the alien, or Riddick was, and he put together that the aliens actually have a blind spot, like right dead center in the middle of their skulls, because they've got these really wide, like airplane-like heads to them. So he puts together like, oh, hey, there's a blind spot right here, which... it's not even a payoff to like a plot point. It's not even a payoff to like, oh, he accomplished something because of it. It's just to have a cool scene later on where he exploits it and then immediately becomes irrelevant again.
Yeah. But like they're dealing with the rain, they're trying to shelter. This is when the last of the red shirts gets killed. He gets dragged up the side of the cliff, and they hide in a cave, and Riddick sort of plugs them in with a big rock, and it's like, oh, our light's running out. And there's a little bit of like a Deus Ex Machina here, but it's like a simple little thing where there's these light bugs that are inside the cave, and that ends up being like the one little source of light they have. So they put them in the booze bottle and use that as like a new lantern, basically.
Yeah. After they're like, has Riddick abandoned us? Are we going to have to go this alone? Are we going to have to do whatever?
And he kind of has. Like, he gets to the little settlement, he gets to the ship, he powers it up, so all the lights are on, it feels safe inside that ship because it is just brightly lit. And he's getting ready to leave, and it's only because Fry, who's, like, kind of been struggling with this idea of them looking at her as the captain throughout, has climbed out the cave with this little blue lantern from the booze bottle of these bugs that they've got, and makes her way over to the ship and kind of, stops. And Riddick doesn't want to fight her or anything. Like, he's like, he opens the door. It's not like he like ignores her. He's like, oh, I'm impressed. I like that. Like, you've got fight in you, to kind of quote the Joker weirdly there. He doesn't say it that way. I just said it that way. But she's like, hey, we're going to go back for them, blah, blah, blah. And Riddick's like, here's a better idea. Why about you just come with me? Leave them behind. So she's basically faced with a choice similar to the start of the movie where she could just leave people to die. But obviously this time she doesn't want to do that. She's going to refuse to do that.
She has literally, like, we see her having her crisis of conscience. She turns around, tackles Riddick to the ground. She's like, I am the captain of this ship. I'm saying we go back for them now. And Riddick's like, you care about them enough to die for them? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, all right, cool, let's go.
And notably, that's the first time she ever actually says the sentence, I am the captain. So she takes ownership of being the captain.
Yeah, takes it away from Tom Hanks in whatever that movie was.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
What was the name of that movie, though?
Captain Phillips.
Oh, okay. There you go. I did not have that in my head.
But that's like enough for him to like, and there is like a couple of moments here or there where Riddick does look back where he's like, oh, maybe I'm being a bit of a dick, but well, I'm Riddick, so I'm just going to leave. So this is like enough to kind of, and it's this sort of thing throughout, like right from that first time where he cuts her hair a little bit, and it's like he decides not to kill her because he's heard this confession about the wanting to abandon everyone else.
He sees the potential story of redemption there. He's like, oh, no, I can make you change.
So he goes back with her, although the thing that gets me, and I'm pretty sure this got me back in the day when I watched it as well, is they specifically say multiple times we're going to go back with more light to save them. Yeah, but they don't. Yeah. They just go back with the same blue lantern. They don't actually go back. Like literally, all they go back and do is move the rock out the way, and then but Riddick's got his eyes, so he's like directing them around the aliens on the way back.
Yeah, I don't know. Tiny little things, why not? Whatever.
Yeah. But Jack's like, I never had a doubt. I knew you'd come back. And then Keith David's like, "There's my god, Mr. Riddick. There's my," which is a callback to when the rain started, and Riddick's like, "Ha ha ha, where's your god?"
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that's kind of endearing about Riddick. And obviously, for the people in the movie, for those characters, it feels like he's just being this asshole who's like laughing at their problems. But it is this sort of laughing in the face of death that I think makes him like an interesting character. Of like, he's already been through such hell that he doesn't care about living or dying now. Of course, he's going to try to live, but like, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah. And he did, to be fair, by this point also have a heroic moment when they were going through like the skeleton area in the dark. One of the aliens attacks Jack, and she gets pinned under like one of the ribcage things. And Riddick, he has that moment where he's like deciding, does he want to intervene? And he does, and he actually kills the alien with his knife, and he's like, "Oh, you didn't know who he was effing with," and it's like a whole big, moment. So
yeah, wasn't that also, if I'm remembering the moment correctly, like he kind of like shrugged away, he didn't want to look at it, and then Fry gets in there and tries to like shine lights on it to get it away, and that's when he finally comes in and it's like,
yeah, he definitely hesitates. It wasn't like a quick thing, but he did ultimately jump in. Yeah,
I'm just saying it furthers that sort of joint character growth that they both have, where she comes in and plays the hero and then inspires him of like also doing the same.
Yeah, they're basically they're both helping each other's character arcs, which is kind of what makes it all click together in a sense.
Yeah, which then leads to the sad moment at the end of the movie where Riddick gets held up in the middle of an alien fight. Everyone else makes it to the ship. He, I guess, survives, but he comes in, he's stumbling, he's bleeding, and Fry is like, come on, we got to get you to the ship, let's go. And ultimately an alien gets her. So
yeah, well, he gets left behind, and he's actually doing okay with one alien because he's aware that our sound is what makes them see him.
That's the scene where he just stays right in the middle.
So he's sort of doing that, and it's working quite well. But when a second alien pops up behind him, and their sounds are bouncing off each other, it's basically making him visible to both of them, and it's like, shit, you've clocked my plan here. But then Fry comes in to help. And then she gets stabbed in the back or grabbed in the back by an alien and just gets ripped away. And, right before that, she said, "Hey, I said I'd die for them, not for you." She gets pulled into the darkness. She's gone. And I like him saying, "Not for me." I will say it's the one moment where Vin Diesel's performance feels a little bit hokey. Where he's like, "Not for me, not for me." I was like, okay, I feel you trying to act right now, and it's maybe the one time where the you've fallen off the edges of what you can do. So
yeah, honestly, I would say up until this moment, I was like, okay, look, if we just ended the movie with the like, "There's my god," they all get on the ship, they fly away, I think I would have been fine with that. Having this extra moment here where Fry is killed, I don't feel was necessary. Especially for this, like, yes, they established in her thing of like, you'd be willing to die for them, and she says yes, but I don't think we actually had to kill her for that. And then also the following scene, like the actual end of the movie, where he gets into the cockpit, he starts booting up everything, and then he shuts it down. And everyone's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Let's get off the planet. And then just because I guess he wanted to have one more one-liner, as the aliens are piling up around the engines, he says, "Couldn't leave without saying goodnight," and then he pumps it to full, burning all the aliens alive and getting off the planet. I'm like, all right, that's just, on top of the "not for me," that just felt like a little hokier than it should have been at this point.
I didn't mind that little moment at the end. I mean, it is hokey. I'm not going to say it isn't, but it kind of fit for me. And as they're flying off, Jack sits down in the other pilot seat, looks over and says, "Hey, when we run into someone, I mean, who knows who it'll be? Maybe a mercenary ship or something. Like, what did they say about you?" He's like, "Yeah, tell him Riddick died on the planet somewhere." And it kind of feels like he's saying that he did. Like, the Riddick that existed died on the planet, and he's this new version that is more of an anti-hero. And it's like, movie ends. Yeah, it's a fun I think it's I can see you watching this again because it's a very easy, fun watch. It's not like a taxing time. It's a really pleasant movie to just sit down and have a good time with.
Oh yeah, no, and especially like obviously 25 years removed now, we're at a different place. But for those early 2000s, like the people who went to go see The Matrix and got really into it, I could easily see the same group of people getting really into the world of Riddick. Like everyone just thinks it's the coolest thing and wanting to see more of that. And I agree. I think it is very interesting character development, interesting world set up here. It does have, as we said, a lot of shades of like the Alien franchise, where it hints at all these much larger things that happened, but we don't get answers as to specifically what happened or who these people were. And it just, I don't know, that little mystery box there, I feel like is so intriguing. And then out on top of it, the good characters, that it's just a recipe that was always going to be successful.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a fun movie. I think it held up. Like I think my concerns that it wasn't going to hold up were, founded because just the other things from this era sometimes have dated quite badly. Yeah. But I think this is one where I've watched it and went, you know what? No, this was actually pretty good, and it still feels pretty good. Definitely of its time in a lot of ways, but I think it holds up as for the reasons why it worked in the first place, which is why it hasn't went downhill. So. No.
I mean, I can't say whether or not it held up, but for a film of the times, it definitely doesn't feel like one that is meant to be forgotten. It doesn't feel like it was something that was pumped out specifically for cashing in or anything like that. Like, it felt like it was made with intention, and there's a reason that I think the Vin Diesel wants to keep coming back to this character, because there is something deeper there.
Yeah, and I think it's just all about expectations to a point. Like, I think if someone is like, well, it's not as good as like Alien, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, no one's saying it's anywhere nearly as good as Alien, but it's a solid movie of its type. And I think as long as your expectations and standards of what you want out of something like this are in the right place, I mean, I suppose you could say that about anything. If your standards are low enough, then something that's much worse than this is probably just fine. But a lot of this does work, and it gets a lot of fundamentals right, and it's a fun watch. So
absolutely.
And Riddick's a neat character, so there's a reason why they were so hell-bent on doing more with him. And I'm not surprised that if he was going to die at the end, that they said, hey, what if we don't kill him? Because we see potential in more movies.
Yeah. I do, obviously the movies are already out, except for the fourth one. We'll see when that happens. But I do kind of worry because Riddick as a character does strike me as very potent for being Flanderized. For taking on just his coolest traits and like making him the badass hero with zero flaws. And I don't want that. I think his biggest interesting point to me is his flaws and how he works through them. Yeah,
no, that's a fair point. So we'll see how that shapes up when we do get to the sequels. But for now, this was Pitch Black, and it is a very focused movie that just happens to have a cool new character in it. So, all right, David, what are you giving Pitch Black out of 10?
See, for anyone who doesn't watch the ratings rundown, I just went like 7 or higher, like the entire time that we were going through the categories there. But when I entered this review, I had a dead set in my mind of like, this is a 7. It felt like a 7 to me. So now I feel a bit like, now that I've really broken it down category by category, do I go higher? Do I bump it up? I think what's changed, what went differently there is the idea that I might eventually sit down and rewatch this, and all of those problems I have in the first act are going to be viewed through a different lens. Once I am now I'm associated with these characters, now I know like who to pay attention to more instead of just being blasted with like 17 people all at once and not knowing who to pay attention to. I still think the visuals are going to throw me a little bit in the editing style, but who knows? Maybe that's just a me thing. I think I'm going to bump this one up to a 7.5. I still don't think it's in great territory. It still is like a B movie. It still has its flaws, but I can see why people like it so much. And it does have a lot of redeeming qualities, especially once you get into the back half. So yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, I think I wasn't sure what I was expecting to give it when I sat down to rewatch it. Like, I know how I felt back in the day, but I was like, oh, is it going to, even if I'm not that like disappointed or whatever, like, is it still just going to naturally have been down a little bit? And I watching it, like, I still had a good time. Like, it was nice revisiting it. It's well paced. It does not waste time. I think it probably does just about scrape the 8 for me. I think it is a solid 8 out of 10, a 4-star movie, whatever you want to call it. I think it absolutely just fills that, it kind of hits its ceiling, but it does it very nicely, and I think it's a good time. So yeah, obviously, will the sequels remotely live up to this? That's something we'll see. I definitely
before or after Vin Diesel gave up on acting.
Don't get me wrong, I do remember how I felt about both of them when they came out, so we'll find out if what that was and if it still feels that way. But so that's that. Anyway, David's got his homework movie in a second, but I will tell you first what is coming next week on the show. We'll be doing a recent Patreon vote winner, which was Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway. So we'll be looking at that. It's kind of a kaiju movie. I say kind of, and I mean kind of.
Yeah. No, I hope I haven't had this movie ruined for me. I've seen clips of it already, so I'm hoping that I don't get like the final reveal out of those clips.
Well, we shall find out. And then, of course, I'll also tell you about Patreon if you want to get access to the Ratings Rundown segment, which we do for both this show and Collector's Cut, and then our monthly exclusive show called Extra Reels, where we do some of the worst movies ever made. We do one of those a month. You can get access to both of those things, plus some other bits and ends. Also, one of the things I've started doing now is actually uploading the episodes onto Patreon, so that if you get ads on YouTube, you can watch them ad-free on Patreon as an alternative, at least going forward. I'm not backdating all the old ones, but so that's like an extra little perk for folk. If you don't have like YouTube Premium or whatever, you can watch them ad-free on Patreon, or get the audio downloads obviously ad-free as well. But that is that. So yeah, thanks to everyone who already supports us. It is greatly appreciated. It makes all of this possible. With all that said, every week, David goes back, watches a movie we did in the show before he joined. David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, I tried to stay in the same general time period without knowing which movies were going to be B-movies, without kind of just guessing from your guys' scores. I decided to go with Hollow Man.
Okay, all right.
Hollow Man, the only thing I really knew about Hollow Man, I didn't even know the plot. All I knew is that it had a really creepy looking DVD cover that I believe my aunt had at her house. And every time I saw it, I was like, that's a horror movie. And watching it now, kinda.
We did it on Ace because I think Invisible Man tends to lean more sci-fi, yes. But because that's what it is. It's an Invisible Man movie. It's a Kevin Bacon's a scientist who's trying to develop invisibility and turns himself invisible, and stuff happens. yeah, and that stuff happens. There's a lot of heavy lifting, but yeah, no, I this is kind of one of those ones that I'm gonna lump in with Pitch Black in the same sort of way of, despite being of whatever time it was, it felt very confident about its CGI, and I think that with how much it was required to work for the premise of the movie, they did a great job with it. Yeah, I think that it's a. This is one where like 90% of the extras were about the CG. It was like, hey, look at how good this CG is and how much effort we put into this. Absolutely. I'm still, look, whenever it comes to Invisible Man stuff, I mean, nowadays, in terms of like post 2016 special effects, I just assume everything in the entire set is CGI until proven otherwise. But I mean, this was before that, and it seems like there was a lot of stuff in here that, I'm curious how they really made it work. It's obvious a lot of it is CGI, but there's a couple things in here that feel just practical enough that I'm curious to see if they did do it via practical. I like that you went with a movie from the same year. They're both 2000. That was a nice through line. I did my best. I try it. I will say the special effects on this one did feel leagues above, but it also felt a lot more focused. Like Pitch Black had to have an entire space world sort of built up, whereas this one's like, no, we just need to be able to get stuff to float around. That's kind of all we got. Yeah, Yeah, when we did this on the show, it'd been a while since I watched it, much like, there's a lot of stuff from this particular time period where I saw a lot at the time, and then it's been, 15, 20 years since I've seen it. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I probably like gave it like a 7 or a 7.5, but it's like a really solid like 7 or 7.5 of like just being a fun movie. Performances are good. You got Josh Brolin in there, and I forget, Elizabeth Shue is the lead actress, I think. Yeah. What did you think about it then? Did you like it?
No, yeah, I really liked it. I was, I wouldn't say from the word go, but like very quickly in the movie, it grabbed me. It got me into its core centerpiece. Once I realized that we were just doing an Invisible Man movie, now that I have seen the original and the most recent Invisible Man remake, I was like, all right, I get the tropes we're going for. I see the things we're doing here, and it doesn't disappoint. It does a great job. I think it does definitely go more... that's why I say horror movie. It goes more horror movie, more like gory and like slasher by the end than anything else. But it's still solid. It's still very well made. The only thing I think might be a little bit of a throw off is so much of the movie is relying on the absence of something being there for the special effects. Once they actually have to rely in the third act on visually something being there, I think that could be a little bit of a turnoff, especially right at the end of the movie when everything's peaking. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, I do think mechanically though, like, the sprinklers coming on so you can sort of see the vague shape walking through the water. I think that's a really cool mechanical thing to use.
No, yeah, they specifically have characters like smoking cigars so he can walk through the smoke and stuff like that. Like, it's very well done. I think I'm probably going to give that one a 7. I think it's... It's also just straight up very good. If I had to compare with Pitch Black, I do think that it is one that probably doesn't hold up in terms of like, I don't really have much of an interest to rewatch it. I think once is kind of enough for that, but it's still a solidly made film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's rewatchable. I think compared to Pitch Black, I would say that it has less of like a good character arc. It doesn't quite have that, but it's a fun movie with, very charismatic actors at the lead, kind of holding it all kind of together. And it's not that sleazy for Verhoeven's sake, but there's still a little bit of Verhoeven sleaze in there.
That was the thing. I was reading the trivia after the fact, and Verhoeven was like, I hate this movie. It's the one movie I regret making because it felt like anybody could have made it. And I was like, my dude.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, we need to get up to have a Verhoeven season on Collector's Cut so we can watch Benedetta, the lesbian nun movie.
I'm down. I might just do that tonight, regardless.
Box of tissues at the ready. All right, that is the show, everyone. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction, and we will see you next time. Oh, computer, add salsa.